the team has relentlessly put together various concepts aligning themselves to Hingori's sole mission to share knowledge and help as many people as possible to evolve. So, dear audience, please do go to hingorisutras.com and view these videos at your convenience. And if you have any questions or need any clarifications, please do write to us at answers.hingorisutras@gmail.com. And I think we are now ready to start with the session. So we will begin again with the intriguing talk of Lokas.
The 14-storied building of the Milky Way can also be called the Lokas. Lokas exist in a macrocosm and are reflected in the microcosm of our bodies. Each lok represents or reflects a particular range of consciousness. Call it perceived reality. Both in the human forms and in cosmic forms, these loks are located in the space from head to toe. The cosmic body is compared to an egg and called Brahmand. The 7 upper loks are domains of light and extend from spine to crown of the head, from earth to sun, sun to the North Star or Dhruv Tara, and from there beyond. The lower loks are called tals and are domains of limited light or partial darkness. Gurudev once showed me during a state of dhyan a fire burning inside my body, crimson in color and in the area of the navel and above. It was like the fire of a yajna, and I saw it moving for quite a few seconds. My experience of fire within could possibly be the sun that illuminates from the spine to the head with the subtle aura of light. The Puranas describe these lokas to be pairs, starting from both the head as well as the center of the body in the microcosm, and differentiated by the subtleness of consciousness. It is my personal belief, with no reference to any available scripture, that the Shiv Lingam and the Lingam are also both organs of creativity, one creating subtle energy above, in the head, and the other dissipating sperm and ovary for creativity for the lower worlds. Different levels of the Loka consciousness represent different gunas or qualities that qualify the birds of a feather that inhabit them, till those qualities alter and qualifications lead to change. It is said that both the lower lokas and lower tals have existence of roops or forms of self-reflection. That is why some acquire self-reflections of devs, sages, etc., and others of rakshasas, demons, and the like. To add practical experience to theory, let me play a few recordings of people who have practically seen what others talk about. The first is Mr. Quatra, an industrialist from Gurgaon, on how he saw the unbelievable at the hands of his guru.
तो कहने लगे हाँ पुत्र आ गया तू मैं कहा हाँ गुरु जी लेकिन मैं कहा गुरु जी मैं ऐसा तो मत्था नहीं टेकूंगा आपको ये बताना होगा कि आप मेरे गुरु हैं चरणों में मत्था तभी टेकूंगा कि जब आप मुझे ये विश्वास दिला देंगे कि आप मेरे गुरु हैं तो उन्होंने कहा ओके बेटा उन्होंने चौंकी मारी पद्म आसन में बैठे पद्म आसन जब बैठ करके उन्होंने हाथ उठाए एंड उनके उसको उठाने की देर है तो आज भी मैं बात करते हुए मेरे रोंगटे खड़े हो रहे हैं the so dazzling light the hundreds of suns have arisen इतनी ज्यादा लाइट हो गई कि मैं I couldn't tolerate मैं उनके चरणों में गिर गया.
An old classmate of mine, Joy Roy, son of the famous movie director Bimal Roy, shares an experience of a conversation with a spirit. Incidentally, Joy's entire family had psychic abilities and they accidentally learnt and resorted to automatic writing.
He said there are different planes, where people go and you And people are given work. I mean, the souls are given work because you have to always say, I'm very busy, I have to go. And the planes are, I think, basically to do with your amount of involvement in your present life or in your life. Your plane would go. You would go to the plane that you are supposed. I mean, in the sense, is in keeping or with the kind of life that you led. So I guess there were higher planes and lower planes, and so yeah. So that's all I can remember because it was a long time ago. I think once or twice he said, we used to ask, have you met so and so? Have you met? Meaning his sisters, brothers who had already passed. And if I recollect, he said once. I think he said yes. Another time he said they're in another plane and I haven't met them or something like that. Meaning what I'm trying to say is there's a structured life, meaning after death, there is a structure to the existence of the soul.
Changing these self-reflective forms is probably as difficult as changing attitudes and habits. And therefore, beings get stuck. And it takes multiple births and unlimited years for the self-reflective corrections. Also, guna mix corrections, as we will examine later. Arthat, the snakes and ladders game is the longest game to play. Should be snakes and sages, technically speaking, as most of the nether worlds are supposed to be inhabited by nagas and the upper ones by divine beings. Hence, the cliche works. The equation is gunas plus karma or sanskars plus self-reflection equals to the corresponding loka. As we go lower in the microcosm, the light reduces and darkness increases in proportion with each receding loka. Patal, or the lowest, being the darkest. Let me play you an interesting testimony of Pappuji, whose father was an early disciple of Gurudev. Shambhuji forces Gurudev in the early 80s to open his third eye or Divya Drishti. And what he sees is unseeable with two eyes.
रात को ऊपर सोते थे छत के ऊपर जी, वहाँ सारे इकट्ठे थे, बैठे बैठे वो बात चली उसके बारे में।
किसके बारे में?
दिव्य दृष्टि के बारे में।
अच्छा।
तो रामनाथ जी तो वो कहते हैं ये सब ऐसे ही है, ये वो है, सो है, ये पांच मुखी शिव, ये कुछ नहीं होता, बोले ऐसे बनाई हुई बातें हैं
जी।
तो पिताजी ने समझाया कि उसको, अरे आवरों वाली बात मत करा कर, ये सब चीजें हैं। वो कहते हैं तो मुझे तो कुछ कभी देखा नहीं मैंने, कभी ये नहीं हुआ। तो गुरु जी बैठे हुए थे, हंस रहे थे
जी।
फिर उन्होंने थोड़ा इशारा किया कि भाई ये इसको कुछ दिखाना पड़ेगा। वो सो गए। सुबह सुबह ये 4 बजे के आसपास का टाइम था, तो उस वक्त बाहर गेट जो है, शिवपुरी की बात है
जी,
वहाँ वो गेट जो है किसी ने खटखटाया। गुरु जी उठे, उन्होंने पिताजी को बोला जाओ देखो कौन है, जाओ। तो रामनाथ जी भी उठ गए, तो नीचे आए। तो जैसे उन्होंने गेट को खोला और आगे देखा तो आगे वो एक इतनी भयानक शक्ल वाला वो खड़ा हुआ है। उसकी शक्ल इतनी भयानक है जैसे राक्षसों की होती है। पिताजी थोड़ा सक पकाए और फिर पीछे हटके आगे देखा तो रामनाथ जी ऊपर से उतर रहे थे। वो भी गए तो उन्होंने भी देखा तो उनको भी वही सीन नजर आया। वो घबराए, फिर वो भागे तो गुरु जी इतने में ऊपर से उतर के नीचे अपने कमरे में चले गए। तो जैसे वो कमरे में गए तो वहाँ वो गुरु जी का रूप जो है वो वहाँ देखा है। एक्चुअली उन्होंने 5 मुखी वाला जो है वहाँ अंदर कमरे में वहाँ गुरु जी का वो रूप देखा तो वो घबरा गए। रामनाथ जी घबराए। तो पिताजी को तो खैर इन चीजों के बारे में पता था, वो तो जानते ही थे। बस वो इतने जैसे वो घबराहट हुई और गुरु जी उस वक्त अपने नॉर्मल उसमें आ गए और उनकी वो जो थी दृष्टि तो वो सारी वो बंद कर दी हो।
तो जब उन्होंने देखा गुरुदेव का ये 5 मुखी रूप, उसके बारे में और भी कुछ आप डिस्क्राइब कर सकते हैं कि सिर्फ 5 मुंह थे, सेम टाइप के मुंह थे जो उनके हैं कि कैसे हैं?
नहीं, वो शिव रूप में देखे हैं पर ये भी पंचमुखी शिवजी महाराज का स्वरूप जो है उन्होंने देखा।
अच्छा।
Let us step down from the 7th floor of the 14-storied building of this universe and see what the lower loks or tals have to offer. The 6th floor, just below earth, is Atal. The average guna mix is a few shades lower. Rajas is the predominant guna. The level in the human body is hips, and its creative organ is the lingam, in parallel to the Shiv lingam in the head. Reservoir of energy for the netherworlds is the flow of sperm compared to the fluid of the Shiv lingam above. It is a world of lesser qualifications than our Bhuloka or earth. It also takes one deeper into delusion and ignorance. Fear and lust are governing emotions. The rupas of the residents here is averagely lower in terms of self-impression and qualifications. It is a corrective world like all the lower planes, and only those who overcome lust and fear and develop opposite attitudes of self-confidence, self-discipline, self-control, and intent to jump to the ladder can get rebirth to earth. A large majority of earthians develop such qualities and have to bounce back to lower planes after their life comes to an end. Those who have qualities of nobility and style are perfect inmates. Intellectuals with selfish attitudes, senior I, me and mine corporate executives, shrewd businessmen, people clever but not wise, corrupt doctors earning commissions by making patients undergo unnecessary expense, people with several extramarital affairs, those indulging in sexual fantasizing, masturbation, etc., make a good fit in these lower lokas, depending on the intensity of their rajasic qualities, combined with tamasic ones, and a fair amount of sattvic ones too. I met my grandmother several months after her demise. It was a strange place. The inmates were all in a similar dress, and the place was darkish or not so bright. She saw, but did not acknowledge me, and continued talking to her associates and colleagues. She looked 30 years younger, but not so unhappy. I believe, and I could be wrong, that she was in a lesser world than this one. She was a decent person, but I guess good enough is not good enough for ascent. Vital Lok. This is the 5th floor and the 2nd level of lower lokas. Each of these levels have multiple locations, cities, and parallel worlds within those parameters. Their topography varies, including the geography, type of colors of the ground, etc. The guna mix is probably, but I conjecture, about 20% sattva, 40% rajas, and 40% tamas. The ignorance levels are higher and sense gratifications are greater aspirations. Warriors, awarded marines, scientists with negative ambitions and qualities, dishonest businessmen, politically minded corporate executives, self-centered beings, violent people either physically or mentally. In short, people with lower self-opinions and stored sanskars belong here. Depending on guna, this could include people with riches on earth, great social standings, well-educated, with maybe degrees from even Harvard or Stanford. People who do charity for social status, priests who are corrupt, government officers who insist on bribes, get visas to these lower lokas very easily. These lokas are not ugly places, but just darker, both in light and in concept and consciousness. Lokas like Sutala or Vitala also contain residents who may be pious and dogmatic, including mean religious leaders, yogis, priests, sportsmen, and women celebrities, presidents, chieftains with one common factor: lower self-opinions and perceived negative sanskars, the guilty. People in Lokas at the level of Sutala, though ignorant, more sense-attracted, more tamasic, still have the desire for hopping on to the ladders and working towards self-improvement. They self-reflect to be demonic and less positive. Their rupas or guna sharirs have a harshness and eyes lack a look of kindness. They believe that they have a lot to do to reverse their descent. Talatal, the third floor, or Mahatal, the second floor, are not necessarily uncomfortable, but darkness prevails in greater measure. Pseudo-agnostics, self-realized sinners, terrorists, tinker, tailor, soldier, sailor, can all qualify in a manner of speaking. After self-corrections and improvement in their guna mix, they can get a chance to take rebirth on earth as a corrective opportunity, but lead a life of suffering, ill health, financial problems, social dissatisfaction in an almost why me existence. Multiple births and slow and steady progress is required to get them to climb the ladder rather than slip on the snakes. Again, it is said that there are several locations of existence on these lokas. Rasatal and Patal, the second and the first floors, are the lowest lokas of existence as defined in various scriptures. Tamas of the negative kind is the dominating guna. Self-reflection is not even a concept. Delusion and ignorance are at a peak in these lokas. Dissatisfaction and misery abound. People believe that a wretched existence is all there is to expect. Liberation and shifting from snake to ladder is a far cry, and both behavior and perception are animalistic. Qualities of refinement hardly exist. Living in the pits is not a pun. It's literal. It's like living in the shadows with the power off. The plugins are hatred, jealousy, supreme guilt, envy, sorrow, basest emotions, worst attitudes, and demonic nature, leading to demonic rupas of the self. Great conquerors like Hitler, Napoleon, terrorists who murder freely, professional killers are allotted these realms. There are 2 points to ponder. 1, is the misery here eternal? And 2, how does one escape from these to better places? It is believed that it is only when you have suffered enough and built a resolve to change do you set an opportunity to get birth on the Bhuloka or earth. This is supposed to be true for most of the lokas and for movement from one to the other, either upwards or downwards. It is our dimension that provides the infrastructure for the relevant crisscross visas. That is why people of this plane of existence reflect the gunas of various lokas. The conditioning and qualifications show and become the trends of their thinking. However, as this is the karma loka, there is opportunity to go against your nature and qualify for the better. Divine beings from higher loks take birth to serve their lower loka entities, to manipulate a change in their gunas through example setting, motivation, counseling, and sharing their gyan. Higher lok beings descend downwards often to fulfill their own completions and final attainments. Many gurus are obligated to take rebirth to uplift their disciples and help them gain completion. Many such devtas, sages, rishis make this a purpose of life. With a personal sacrifice, they help to uplift millions during their lives and beyond. Jesus has and still helps to inspire greater qualities in people. The churches become institutions for change and the priests his conduits. So it is with other isms. The latest and one of the greatest was the Mahaguru, whose Karma Bhumi was Gurgaon and afterlife headquarters is Nazafgarh. While most prophets came with a small contingent of a few, he brought along hundreds of beings from higher lokas to accomplish his missions. Strangely but truly, all these prophets and their associates have to go through their trials before they can view their tribulations. Most succeed, but some do not. The Bhuloka is the poker land where many cards get shuffled. Many sacrifice their desires and many fall for them. The playing field looks fair. The tools are Purusharth. The obstacle is destiny and sanskars. And time is short. Background music is maya or delusion. Climbing the ladder needs effort and balance. Sliding down the snake is gravitational. So let's not focus on the technicalities of this presentation, instead on its message. Our conversation today is not accidental. I have in the vision state visited a few lokas, but never connected the dots and never pondered on the subject. A few weeks ago, whilst going through my mails, I suddenly found my phone accidentally starting playing a YouTube video on lokas. On reflection, I realized that this was a wonderful subject to share and inspire. Unfortunately, my experience was limited and theory not my normal choice. But in this case, I had to resort to borrowing a few pages from the ancients. And so these thoughts are a mixture of my realizations combined with those of others. The purpose is manipulation. Manipulation of your mind and mine. I need to convince you to swim against the tide and myself to be aware that sliding is so much easier, and so be constantly aware. The moral of the story is reflect, realize, correct. I have seen many great people who must be from higher lokas waste their lives. They gave into baser qualities, became arrogant with success, lived self-centered lives, became people of great taste, ruled by their senses, their wine tastings, their bouquets of perfumes, their I am the foodie attitudes, etc., etc. The snakes became a choice of vehicle. On the other hand, I have seen many or heard of many like Valmiki and Vishwamitra and others with base qualities and habits during this earlier life change to evolved beings. Many have lowered their mustaches, become humble, dispassionate, unattached, overcome sensory temptations, and qualify for higher lokas. Those who practiced selfless service progressed geometrically. Statutory warning. These concepts sound black and white, but contain a lot of gray. For example, H for Harvard is not necessarily H for hell. It means even highly educated people can slip to lower floors of the multi-storied building of lokas. They say some of the rulers of the lower lokas are advanced beings with immense power. So all is not lost at slightly lower levels. The bright side? You don't need sunglasses. Most of Gurudev's disciples were established saints from the past and yet needed him to shine brighter. In the process, most would have advanced to higher qualifications. Allow me to play an excerpt from an interview with Shobha Taneja, whose late and great husband gave her a vision and explained his afterlife status.
आप अपने हस्बैंड के बारे में कुछ मुझे बताएं कि कभी उनके शरीर छोड़ने के बाद कभी उन्होंने आपसे आके बताया कि वो क्या करते हैं, क्या हो रहा है उनकी लाइफ में?
जी, उन्होंने बताया मेरे को। मैं बड़ी अच्छी जगह रह रहा हूँ, यहाँ बड़े अच्छे लोग हैं, मैं गुरुजी के साथ हूँ और मुझे सबने पूरा बताया था कि मैंने कहा मेरे पास आओ, मुझे भी दे दो। कहते नहीं, मैं बाद में अभी आना, मैं बड़ी दूर से आता हूँ तेरे मिलने, मुझे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम होती है तेरे पास आने के लिए और मैं बहुत, मेरी बड़ी यहाँ सेवा होती है, मुझे खाना पीना बहुत अच्छा मिल रहा है और बड़े अच्छे लोग हैं जहाँ मैं रह रहा हूँ। मुझे पीछे सपने में सारा बोल गए थे।
और उन्होंने ये नहीं बताया कहाँ? नहीं, वो गुरुजी के साथ है, कहते हैं गुरुजी के साथ हम सब बैठे हैं।
Before we come to our own to-do list, let us look at the ladders that stand parallel to the snake. What are the higher lokas? What qualifications are required? What are the to-dos to get higher on the ladders? Let us imagine ourselves standing at the mid-landing of a staircase. Climbing it is greater effort and needs agility. For those who like to sound profound, call it Purusharth. Let us make this a workshop where we can all contribute to each other's realizations. Technically, you cannot climb up the ladder to higher lokas. You need to float up. Spiritual ballooning, I can call it. The process is lightening the load and moving from grosser to subtler. So what do you need to do to offload in order to move from the Bhuloka or earth plane to its parallel Bhuvalok or astral plane? In chakra terms, from the Mooladhara chakra to the Swadhisthana chakra, from the earth element to the water element, from predominantly tamas to more rajas. Let's mention a few giveaways and undos. Remember, this is a world ruled and perceived by senses. Being optics of limitation, our senses do not offer us more than 5 to 10% of reality. In brackets, within the limitations and circle of Maya. So, the first question, how to circumvent the snakes created by these senses? Question 2, do attachments take you to higher level or stick you down? Question 3, how could you step up the ladder? Gurudev's ek vakya was, apni maut ko saath lekar phirna. Always be conscious of death. I bought his philosophy 35 years ago, and for me this has been a game changer. Just like I believe this discussion can be for you, if you buy into it. Between the Bhuvarlok, the 8th floor, and the next, the 9th floor, the Swarlok or Swarg, heaven, Jannat, the difference is quite huge. Here at the 8th floor, we have a slightly different set of offloads because this is a loka of intellect, memory, relationships, heroic attitudes, emotions. Retake. On the other hand, it is also a loka of attainments. Question 1. So how do you float up to heaven or swa? Let us examine the lyrics that show you how not to. A song from the movie Taj Mahal comes to mind, and I quote, Savi ahle duniya ye कहती है हमसे कि आता नहीं कोई मुड़ के अदम से आज जरा शान वफा देखे जमाना तुमको आना पड़ेगा जो वादा किया वो निभाना पड़ेगा जो वादा किया वो निभाना पड़ेगा. Swarg is a place where you can spend your cosmic currency earned and stored. It is a place of immense pleasure and beauty. Seva leads to Swarg or beyond. It's a place where spiritual understanding and aspirations begin. But there's always a hole in the bucket, dear Liza. There's always a hole. So good deeds get spent and return to Bhulok happens at some point for a recharge. People learn detachments and how to focus on the purpose of the self. They also prepare for rebirth on Bhuloka when spiritual assets dwindle. They get born as kings and queens and administrators and dominating personalities and celebrities, whatever. Once again, the cycle begins. If they are philanthropic and kind, they retain their Loka status. If not, they catch a snake ride. If they are those who outdo expectations, the ethereal ladder appears and an ascent is in order. The ascent is to the Anahata Chakra or the Maharlok, which lies beyond the Dhruv Tara or the pole star. The geographical location of the Swa is between the sun and the pole star. Mahar is the land of the wise and balanced with qualities of selfless service, compassion, and self-love. However, inactivity and observer capability is still one loka away. Birth on earth comes as teachers, reformers, saintly people, healers, etc. Karmas are not doable at the level of these higher lokas. When one qualifies beyond devotion and beliefs and attains the status of knowing or gyan, one becomes an invited resident of the Jana Loka. In the microcosm, this loka is at the level of the Vishuddhi Chakra. One needs to be a sincere practitioner of spirituality and dispassion to qualify for a seat here. Till you harbor emotions, don't attain gyan or intuitive knowledge, you can read about this loka, but not live here. The senses, especially the sense of sound and hearing, needs to be history at this point. When self-respect turns to self-reverence, when one feels the justification of self-worship, one takes birth, if and when one needs, on Bhuloka as a spiritual ladder and an aspirant to a higher loka. When duality becomes an amalgam and wisdom hands the baton to observership or sakshi bhav, one gets catapulted to the tapaloka. This is the loka of divya bhakti and reflection of oneself as divinity. There are no judgments on others or self, and one learns to identify as one with the universal consciousness, as this is the loka of divya bhakti and reflection of oneself as divinity. There are no judgments on others or self, and one learns to identify as one with the universal consciousness. As this is a place of the third eye in the body, one has started the journey to shift consciousness. To share my story with Gurudev, he first made my third eye open 35 years ago, and when I had several experiences, I went and shared them with him. What seemed cruel at that time was that he scanned his hand from my head to my lower back and shut it. I could have otherwise answered any question about any subject to anyone at any time. All these any's, which were many's, got diluted to pennies. His wisdom was that I would get stuck at this point and enjoy the results and not move further. This is his grace to most of his disciples whom he qualified for higher loks, but did not allow the usage of those qualities, lest they become obstacles in themselves. There are three centers between the Tapaloka and the Satyaloka. Above the Ajna Chakra are three chakras, including the Sahasra, the location for final emancipation. Of course, once in a few thousand years, there are those who do not depart from the body, but with it. It is called going Sah Sharir. Jesus, Sitaramji Senior, Kabir, Guru Nanak, and several unheard of ones are of this status. A different version of these are the immortals, whose body is everlasting and dwell on this loka. Parashuramji, Ashwathama, Hanuman, and others I am not aware of, exist in this status. It is believed that above the Satya Loka are lokas like Vaikunt, Goloka, Shivaloka, etc. It is possible that the Brahmalok and these are parallel and variable due to the inherent nature the being has evolved into. Arthat, is their consciousness Shiva, Vishnu, or Brahma? In disagreement to many scriptures, I would say that moksha lies beyond these lokas too. I would like to play a short recording of Sri Ravi Trehan, one of Gurudev's disciples, on a visit to a higher loka.
मैं इस तरह से तो लेके गए और मुझे इस बात का भी एहसास हुआ कि मैं इस लोक में नहीं हूँ, किसी दूसरे लोक में हूँ. I cannot say that with 100% confidence तो है, 100% proof, but the impression I got was कि मैं गुरु लोक में था.
When?
एक बार मुझे साथ ले गए थे.
Okay.
मुझे साथ ले गए थे. मैंने वहाँ देखा. पहचानने वाली सिचुएशन में मैं नहीं था, लेकिन मुझे ऐसा महसूस हुआ कि जितने पुराने महागुरु हैं, they were there in the sense, जैसे ऋषियों की आप शक्लें देखते हैं तस्वीरों में, बड़ी जटाएं और दाढ़ी और जिस तरह की वो पोशाक पहनते हैं, उस तरह का दरबार लगा हुआ है. एंड विश्वामित्र जी भी वहाँ पर हैं, अपने
वशिष्ठ जी,
हमारे श्री वशिष्ठ भी वहाँ पर हैं. इस तरह के एहसास था कि ये लोग यहाँ बैठे हुए.
The purpose of our Loka chart today is to create the awareness of the various options in the afterlife. Though it is not a choice, but yet we can try to create within ourselves the changes that help us to qualify for placements in higher domains. Download this chart, and if you are not able to score all the marks, remember, nor has the person who formulated it, nor many of the sages, nor the Devi Devtas. If you have questions, let me tell you that I have not visited all these lokas. I have visited only 3 or 4 at the most. On one of the lokas, I remember, I was not walking, but in Padmasana, floating above the ground. And it seemed to be a very bright, but a very rustic place, without too much of aesthetics in it. And on another occasion, I remember visiting another loka which had a similar topography and was similarly bright, and was witness to watching many saints walk across from one place to the other. I assume these are experiences of higher lokas. The experience I cited earlier of meeting my grandmother, or rather seeing her, was in one of the lower lokas. Gurudev once shared with me in confidence that when we die, in our afterlife, we have to first pass through the Dhruv Tara, or the pole star, to get to where we belong. He also mentioned that we come across crossroads, and at these crossroads, one side has very bare-looking places, and the other side has very aesthetically lovely-looking places. And he warned that the bare ones are the higher ones, and we should not get stuck because of our sense of sight. Just a warning for those who might need it in some life or the other. Ravi Trehanji asked me to share with you a version of the 7 Chakra Gayatri mantra. Om Bhu, Om Bhuva, Om Swa, Om Maha, Om Jana, Om Tapa, Om Satyam. Om Tat Savitr Varenyam, Bhrigo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. This, according to me, is not a prayer. It is a set of vibrations that come together to expand your aura, enhance your power, and help you to climb to higher levels of the microcosm that you are. And with this, we conclude our talk on Lokas and hope it inspires you. In case you do not decide to practice and heed what I have recommended, then it's simple. You just owe me $1 million, either in this loka or some other.
And that was Lokas Decoded for us by Hingori. And now for the question and answer session. So could we just start off the Q&A, please?
Can you hear me, Anjali?
Yes, sir. I can hear you loud and clear.
I'm seeing some questions here. May I answer them?
Yes, please do.
So before I answer any question, I want you to know that I do not run a travel agency to the Lokas. And I haven't had a Loka familiarity tour or a fam tour to all the Lokas. But yes, I think if you have a few experiences, the rest of the dots can be put into place. So yes, I would be happy to answer whatever best I can. The main thing that I think this whole talk was meant to provide was the I wouldn't use the word ambition or dream or desire or whatever, but I just wanted you to provide you a kind of a concept where
you should be able to assess yourself. We get this life with great difficulty. And what do we do with this life is of course, everybody does some good things and everybody does some not so good things. But I think the preciousness of this life is what I wanted to place in front of all of you and share with you some of my own thoughts and beliefs. And of course, a little research that I had to do in order to make the whole thing sound more logical. But I have never needed research to know that refinement and subtlety is what takes you to higher levels. I mean, that's just as simple a logic as it can be. And the grosser your thoughts, your processes, your personality, your gunas, then you normally land up in grosser locations. So that was basically my whole purpose of this talk, and I want you to think. And I also want to scare you a little, because I think it's worth doing, because unless we have that little fear and awe, then we may not really bother about all these things, and we'll be busy with our own thing, buying this, going here, doing what. And we won't even think about the fact that, we have a location to go to after we die. And why not have a location which is slightly more enjoyable? I wouldn't use the word enjoyable, but slightly nicer and subtler, and with better people around and better quality of human beings. I'm not saying better quality of life, because that normally is translated by more people into sensuality. But I'm saying where there is better quality and higher level of human being, a kind of a birds of a feather kind of approach, which I was already talking about earlier. So yes, if there are some questions, let's get through to them. I think there was a question which said, sir, are the lokas, realms and dimensions the same? Yeah, I think these are just synonyms, what I'm saying.
So can you be a little louder? So we're just getting things that you're a little softer. So could you get a bit louder, please?
I think my wife would be very happy to know that I've suddenly become soft-spoken. But is that better?
Hanji, that's a bit better.
Okay. So somebody says, are these lokas, realms and dimensions the same? Richa, yes, they are the same. I mean, they're just different words that we are using for these dimensions. So are these dimensions all within us? Somebody said, that they have read in the Ashtavakra Gita that they're all within us. So, when you talk about such levels of thought, then you're talking about, then you're talking beyond Maya. But unfortunately, you and I, we may understand Maya, we may sense it, even in our own day-to-day life and our own reactions, reflections, whatever. But we unfortunately live a very Maya life, if I may put it like that. This is my daily work. I have to be there at 10 o'clock. I have to do this, that, and the other. All our day-to-day operations management. So Maya, basically, right? So if you go beyond Maya, then there is no such thing as lokas, and even these are all illusionary. I mean, the whole cosmos is illusionary. It is the creation of the creator who himself, if it is him, or if it is it, then who itself is a kind of a thought concept or a notion. So if this creator is a notion, then all his creation is also a notion. And if all his creation is also a notion, then what is real? Nothing is real. But then that's great as far as theory goes. And yes, we have, many of us have experienced some part of this Maya. I mean, like walking through a window in a spirit form, flying through, doors, I mean, flying through roofs and ceilings, traveling at speed, going from one location to another. All this is all a part of Maya that we have experienced. Some of us have experienced. So yes, I do accept that. But then, till you don't reach that point that you have crossed that consciousness and you have actually outwitted Maya, I think till that time you will have to believe in, or you have to live by the perceived reality. Yeah, I mean, it's not a great answer, but then there is no great answer for a question like this. Then Vivek Khemka says, I understood lokas to be metaphorical levels to describe one's progress, guna, mix, etc. I'm not sure what one means when people say they they visit Loka. So yeah, actually, my personal experience was when Gurudev first told me about this. He actually showed me in his little veranda. He took me out and very late in the night, and he said, "Look at that Tara," and it was the Dhruv Tara, or the pole star. And he said, "Beta, we have to go from this, and then we have to cross this, and then go to our domicile, whatever." So that's a physical realm, right? The pole star is physical and not physical. Is it a thought? Yes, it is a thought. Is it Maya? Yes, it is Maya. But if you're going to look at it like that, then what is real? Nothing is real. Even Ashtavakra, who wrote about this, itself is a myth. Correct? And if Krishna talked about it, Krishna himself is a part of Maya. He himself is a delusionary reality or a hologram, a great hologram with great capabilities, unlike most other holograms who have equal potency, but not those developed capabilities. So is Ashtavakra true? Not really. He's also a hologram, an imaginary creation. But then, if that is so, then what are we discussing? Then there is nothing to discuss. Then I can conclude the whole statement of spirituality with just two lines. Nothing is and everything isn't. If you just remember these two lines, then you have reality. Nothing is and everything isn't. It is all belief, make believe. Visualization. Visualization, not the way you sit and dream, but visualization can be solidified. And I know that. And if Brahmaji did it, I have seen those very things that Brahma did not happen at that scale, but at a small, minuscule scale. Creation of Nirvankaya is also visualization, right? So this is how I would answer the question. Not impressively, but with sincere feelings that this is what I mean. You mentioned that Guru is obliged to come down and help his disciples rise. Would it be correct to believe that he would guide them to Guru Lok, where he resides? Where would Guru Lok be? I don't know, Devra. I have heard Ravi Tayanji talk about this Guru Lok. I heard Gurudev told me that we live in a particular place. I'm assuming he lives in Guru Lok. Is that Guru Lok the same as Brahma Lok? Maybe. Maybe. But if you go by what the scriptures say, Gurus live in all the different loks of Maharlok and Janalok and Tapalok as well as Brahmalok. And somewhere in Bhrigu Samhita it is said that Gurudev lives in Kailash. Kailash is supposed to be another beyond the lok, kind of a lok. So your guess is as good as mine. And I would hate to conjecture. You mentioned thought is not a choice and yet one can try. Please decode this. Of course, this is a manner of speaking, Avanime. If we were to live by reality, then nothing is. And so, even though we know that nothing can be achieved, we still keep trying every day. We wake up and go to office and do this, and we're trying to sell our wares and complete our operations management of the day. Yes, it's all Maya, Animes. I accept that completely. So, is thought not a choice? No, it is not a choice. And yet we can try. Yeah, we can try. I mean, these are oxymoronish statements. I fully accept that. But we lived like that. We live in a world where we believe that we make an effort. The only thing I have seen where I have had a dispute with Guru Vashisht, not in sitting across the table terms, but in across history terms. I have not understood his concept of Purusha. I understand it. I can explain it. I can write a book on it. But I'm not able to relate with that concept because everything, almost everything, is predetermined. Gurudev's whole life was predetermined and written in Bhrigu Shastra. So then where was the Purushartha? And yet, even Gurudev used to say that you can rewrite this and you can rewrite the lives of people. And I've seen myself do that. I've seen an accident where my vision of the accident and my reality was different, slightly. But to what extent? I think just a few percent. Could Gurudev rewrite people's life? I believe he could. How? Because probably, he went into the Jivatma level of that person, where the Jivatma had predetermined a strategy for this life, which includes suffering, which includes misery, which includes what they call enjoyment or pleasure or expenditure or whatever. And he could probably go to that Jivatma level, connect as one-to-one, and maybe re-look at that strategy. And that possibly is the only way Purusharth can work. It cannot work with conscious effort to the best of my knowledge, and I'm accepting the fact that I could be wrong. But I would not bet on it. No. What are the benefits of leaving the earthly plane, say Sharir? Actually, I'd love to answer this question technically correctly, but the best answer I can come up with is when you go say Sharir, you are completely, your Sharir is gross body, and you're dematerializing a gross body, which means if you can dematerialize it, and that gross body has huge magnetic qualities. So if you can dematerialize it, then you can rematerialize it. If you can rematerialize it, then you have the ability of that gross body and its magnetic qualities. And gross body has the magnetic qualities of being able to attract aura, energy, on all these things. I'm assuming that's possibly the best answer I can think of. When everything perceived by us is a part of Maya, then would it be correct to assume that the Lokas too are a part of Maya? Of course, I would believe that. Of course, I would believe that. But then on the other hand, Rishabh, when you talk about the Brahmaloka, you're talking about complete Gyan. You're not talking about people who believe in karma because they know there is no such thing. You're not talking about people who believe in doership because they also realize that there is no such thing. Then you are talking about those beings who are only beings in concept and not really, they probably live thoughtlessly. They probably live more robotically. And so at that level, I guess Maya is absent. So are those lokas real? I guess those lokas are real enough to be more real than the others, but everything in this world, including the creator himself, is a part of Maya. So with this confused statement, I would say that Maya is all pervasive, and yet there is a dimension or two dimensions where you live recognizing, understanding, and outwitting Maya, but yet the fact that you exist is also Maya. How good did that sound? I don't think so. But I believe every word of that is true. Anjali, is there any other question that I've missed? Anjali, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Gee, we have a lot of questions on YouTube as well. If you permit, I would like to take some of for the YouTube audience as well.
Please, go ahead.
There's a question by Akshay Kadam saying, Dear Hingori ji, based on what you said, even Guru will have to keep coming every now and then to take old disciples and maybe add new ones. So choice is to be able to qualify higher and stay at the Bhulok.
What was the second part of the question? Choice would be to?
Choice is to be able to qualify higher and stay at the Bhulok.
So yeah, a lot of people do that. I mean, I think that's not the question. Is that the question? Is the choice to stay at Bhulok?
Yes, so basically he's asking whether gurus do choose to come down, and would it be of, I think, relevance or importance for us to come down to Bhulok to connect with the guru? I think that's what he's trying to understand.
So let me try to understand let me try and explain the question as best as I have understood it. First of all, the guru-shishya relationship is a very complicated one. It's an entanglement, to be quite honest. Most people do not give mantras, and especially the guru mantras, to anybody unless they have particularly siphoned out 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 11 disciples, and they appoint them their disciples, and then they give them that mantra called Naam. And the moment they have given them the mantra, they get entangled. and they get entangled because they have taken the obligation of getting these people out of that circuit of their current spiritual status or whatever. And so it is their obligation as a guru. Otherwise, they do not qualify to be a guru. To qualify, because there's a difference between guru and adhyapak and between adhyapak and acharya. So guru is neither an adhyapak or an acharya. He is the person who has actually sort of got himself married to you, if I may use that term wrongly, in terms of spiritual relationship. And it is his obligation, because he has taken that obligation, to make sure that he gets you through. Now, if he can get you through in one lifetime, he will. Otherwise, he has to get caught up and come back, because otherwise his obligation is not fulfilled. Yes, there are other things that he might achieve in his second life. If he comes back, he might even progress further. If he was on planet X, Loka X, he might go to Loka X plus. All that is possible. And all that does happen. Like, for example, in Gurudev's case, yes, I think this life was very productive for him as well. I mean, he attained many Shiv symbols on his hands. I do not know in his life, but in this life, it was like a whole, it was like a jugglery of symbols. So, did Gurudev have any benefits in this life besides completion of his disciples or partial completion of his disciples? Yes, I think even his personal being got more sort of enhanced, if there is a word like, if I can use that word. So.
Right. Who decides which lok we go to after we die?
This is a wonderful question. And there are 1 million answers to this. And everybody says...
Sir, could you be a little louder? We cannot hear you clearly.
Okay. Really, can you hear me better now?
Yes, much better.
So the thing is, this is a slightly complicated question. Reason is, who decides? It is the Atma that decides. Who is Atma? The Atma that is your identified Atma, that decides. So on what basis does it decide? It decides based on self-reflection, because the final purpose of the Atma is cleansing, is getting rid of its various bodies. It does not want your body. It doesn't want the body within it. It doesn't want that karna sharir. It doesn't even want itself. It does not even want its identification of itself, and it does not even want its ego. It wants its freedom. So these are the processes of freedom. And so the Atma actually decides and writes its own strategy. But because even when you die, by the way, this is great way of saying it, but the truth is, when you die, you're not conscious enough to be connected to your Atma. So there is something in between your own rewriting it, or your Atma's rewriting it, and you're accepting that. Because supposing you're a spirit, you're not at the consciousness of your Jivatma in the spirit body. And so there is some methodology where you are made to see and reflect all your past, and then your Jivatma will determine which lok you will go to, because most of these loks are meant to be corrective loks. They're not except for Swarg, which is supposed to be where you go and sort of spend your money at Las Vegas of sorts. But otherwise, most of these loks are meant to be corrective, especially the lower ones are meant to be corrective loks. So the Atma will decide that it needs that correction, it needs that medication, and therefore it will hospitalize itself where it feels it can be treated and cured. I hope that makes sense.
Ji. Yes, sir. There's another question which says, is the earth plane the only one where one can exhaust or create a new karma? Or can this be done across planes?
To the best of my knowledge, the earth is the only place where karma is a concept, where it is called a karma bhumi. And so if you go to the higher loks, there is no acceptance of doership there, right? So if there is no acceptance of doership, there is no concept of karma. It is existence That doesn't mean that you sort of float around like you're in a swimming pool or something. There are, like Gurudev, I believe, and most of his disciples who passed on either before or after him, most of them seem to be, located with him either fully or partially, and they seem to be working with him. You heard my friend Joy Roy, uh, his uh, uh, his experience with a spirit who told him that most people also work. So yes, I think there's a lot of work that is happening at different dimensions. But I don't think that work or that duty is called karma, like the way we would call karma on earth. So earth is probably the one plane where you come and you exercise, or you either enjoy the fruits of your karma or you suffer the fruits of your karma. If you go to lower loks, I don't think there are karmas there. There is just corrective living.
Right. So there's one more question here about gati. The question here is, what is aura theft, and does that hinder gati or loka attainment?
Seems to be more than one question.
Yeah.
What is aura theft?
Or what is aura theft? So it's basically, if somebody steals your aura, so would that affect your gati and loka attainment? Is, I think, what he is trying to say.
I think aura is okay. Replenishing aura is a very, I mean, I won't call it easy, because again, sometimes words are not enough to express. But supposing somebody steals your aura, as long as you are your consciousness is at a much higher level, or you have the ability to oscillate your consciousness to higher levels, aura is all over the place. You walk across a crossing on a busy street, there is aura lying all over the place. You can actually pick it up. You don't have to pick it up. You will attract it. The problem is not how much aura you can lose or gain, is how much you can hold. And your aura, the ability to hold aura will depend upon your oscillation of your consciousness, or your gravity, or your kundalini, however you want to describe it. There's so many ways people talk about it, but that level that you can oscillate to is what gives you the capacity to hold more. It's like an inverted triangle. If you're at the lowest level, you can hold less, and even if you acquire more, it'll just it won't fall off. But I mean, you shake hand with somebody, and the excess that you can't hold will go to that handshake, to that person shaking your hand. So this is how aura is a very dynamic principle. It is a radiation. It's not something like a subtle piece of cloth that you wear. Am I making any sense?
Yes, sir. So here I'd like to combine two questions. One is, it's about the inhabitants of a particular lok. So is it that you would know all the inhabitants there, and would you have a connect with them on earth? So the question is that do your family or your loved ones, and you land up in the same lok, or your kul, or the people that in your circle, physical circle, do you all land up in the same lok?
No, how can you land up in the same lok? I mean, this is not about there's not buying a set of tickets on an airplane or in a train or booking a bogie somewhere. You will go to the lok where your self-reflection is based on your gunas. If your gunas are of a particular chemistry or whatever, physics, chemistry, however you want to call it, but if you have that particular mix, then you will have a qualification for a particular place. But you can't just go to a lok because you're, and this word loved ones is probably the most fragile word I've ever heard. What do you mean loved ones? If you are in a higher lok, there is no such thing as your loved ones. The fact that you use the term your loved one means you're probably prescribing for yourself at a lower level.
Right.
I mean, Shloka Nath has asked this question also.
Yes.
After our loved ones die, can we only meet them if we end up in the same loka? Do we even recognize each other? Does it even matter? The answer is you've given the answer, Shloka, and you've given such a brilliant answer. And why have you put it with a question mark? I would have liked to see it with an exclamation.
Geez, another question is why does destiny determine the spiritual advancement in a particular life? Can one still go beyond using the limitations or through the limitations, I think is what they're saying, that we have?
I'm a slow learner. Can you say it again?
Does destiny determine our spiritual advancement in a particular life? So is there a way to circumvent and go beyond the spiritual advancement planned for us in this life, kind of?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. Who has asked this question? A very intelligent question.
Bipin Wadhwa ji.
Very, very brilliant question, Vipin. See, the thing is, I have been, because in my earlier days, when I could not figure out most things, and I had an intense desire to figure out most things. Okay, I had that experience of third eye, and then I had that experience of tala on the third eye, and then I didn't have the capacity left to use it. So it was frustrating. It is frustrating for anybody. So at that time, the desperation was there to know more and learn everything that I could. So I studied a lot of people's horoscopes through an astrologer friend of mine, and I found something very strange. Most of these people, including some of the people who are right now on this chat, like Ravi Tayanji and Devraj, etc., and Rishabh Manaktala and Dhruv Bhalla, and all of them had a particular type of a combination on their in their horoscope, which means that there can be various planets and there can be various houses that could be combining in different manners. So there's no particular set X, Y, and Z. But I could see that most of them were destined for this kind of greatness, right? So what about those who are not? That is the question. I think even if you don't have a natural trend of something, I don't think you can be stopped from sitting down, looking at. I mean, I don't know if you've heard that song, sitting on the dock of the bay. Have you heard that? Watching the tide ride away, or something like that. So there's nothing who can stop you by sitting by the seaside or the mountainside or the riverside or the whatever side, and do your part or your mantra. There's nothing that can stop you. I mean, if you are determined, and if you have that intense desire, which of course is a paradox, because if you have that desire, then somewhere down the line that trend is there, but it may not be visible. It may not be visible in your horoscope or your chart, but that trend is there. If that trend is there, then that desire will be there, and that desire will lead you to wanting to break that trend, which actually doesn't exist. Am I making sense?
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking that I don't have that trend, but then who am I to think like that? Who was Valmiki to think that he will write the Ramayana? At a time, at one particular X, Y, Z point of time, where was this guy a saint? What made Vishwamitra ever think that he will become a Brahma Rishi? All he wanted to do was get that Kamdhenu guy. That was his entire mission statement and vision statement of his life. But then look at what happened. Look at how opposite events lead to opposite results. Even if I say it in bad English, I'm sure you know what I'm saying. So I think that inherent ability to want to be spiritually inclined cannot be stopped by horoscopic trends and the planetary rays. One can outwit that with pure. I'm not saying with great determination, because again that becomes a very active thing, but by the passiveness of it.
Right. So there are many questions here on karma. So if I just combine the questions which sort of make it relevant to Lokas, it is, we come on the earth, the planet Earth, to exhaust our karmas. And we also know there are multiple more planets where there may be existence. So is Earth the only planet where we can exhaust karmas, or can we do it in these different planes or realms or dimensions in between?
So see, when you come to Earth, this is like the midpoint, right? And
Right.
this is also the gross, a particular vibration of body. So I think Guru Vashisht said something, if I'm not mistaken, he said that you are gifted two bodies. One body he was talking about is a Sushma Sharir, and the other body that he's talking about is the gross Sthir Sharir, or whatever it's called, the gross body.
Mm-hmm.
And so this gross body and the spirit body combined together to live in this existence on earth. And because they have that third body, which is called the Karna Sharir, that Karna Sharir is called causal body because it is the cause. If you had no karma, then why would you like to be born on earth? Unless you're being sent here on a tour or some kind of a mission, then if you, the only reason why you are born on earth is because these two bodies take the conditioning of the past and want to cleanse it. That whole philosophy of karma, of exhaustion of karma, is the reduction of the impressions or the engrams that your third body or the causal body holds. Karna Sharir means it is the karan of. Causal body means it is the cause of. That's exactly why earth becomes the infrastructure world where you bring that causal body enveloped with these two other bodies to get rid of all the impressions and to let the steam out and cleanse yourself. That's how I see the karmic philosophy work. That's what I think is the karmic philosophy. In fact, I know that is the karmic philosophy, but unfortunately, we take karma very seriously. And that itself is where we create the loop. I mean, my humble request, and I would beseech everyone here on this program, is do not take your karma seriously. Do not look at your sanskars seriously. Do not keep on trying to add to these karmas. I myself misguide people. I mean, I'm very good at misguiding people by telling them how to do good deeds. The truth is there something like that?
Right.
There isn't something like that. It's a belief that we have done this. It's a balance sheet that you're creating on a paper that is wanting to be clean. The paper does not want a balance sheet. The paper wants to eradicate the balance sheet. The paper wants to eradicate identification. I don't want to be known. Why I know there is no Hingori now. There are hundreds of you who are all part of that same word that we coined. What was the reason for keeping this secrecy? The reason for secrecy is because we were not born to create ourselves as glorified beings. We were not born to fortify our identities. We were born to eradicate them. Correct?
Yes.
So the whole idea of karma is a myth. And this is being said by a person who wrote a book called Karma Sutra. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Non-doership is the response in the book, as you said.
Yeah. But the thing is, when you're talking to a person of a school who's passing out of 10th standard, you can't be saying the same things to that person which you would discuss with a double PhD, right?
Yes.
So we have to go step by step. There is that U-turn. I am going off the subject, but I'm justifying something. There is a U-turn where all philosophies, hit a dead end, and you realize that none of them are genuinely true eternally. They are true perceivably. And that's when you come back to zero, but you don't come to the same longitude zero. You come to another longitude zero, and that zero is where you realize that nothing is and everything isn't.
Right.
I'm trying to sell this line, by the way. It seems like I'm getting paid to sell this line.
Yeah, I think we're going to copyright it. So there is one. Going back to that question is when people would like to understand is when we say Earth or Bhulok, we are talking about this entire physical realm, which is visible to us, right? Not beyond that. So they want to know, is there any karmic
no,
practices.
but the question is wrong, Anjali.
Mhm.
That question itself is wrong.
Okay.
What do you mean visible to us? There are so many spirits all over the place. I mean, there must be billions of them. They are not visible to you, and they are all on Bhulok.
Right.
So how are you saying that they are not visible to us? There is I mean, how much of Bhulok is visible to you?
Right. Just till your eyes can see a few meters.
No. I'm not talking about the length of visibility. I'm talking about, see, there is a ray of light which can be divided into 7 segments.
Right. Right.
I mean, I learned this from a 6th standard. I learned this from a 6th standard ZTV program about some 30 years back. I was just going through it, trying to find something for the kids, and I was surprised that they were teaching this in the 6th standard, and we don't know it even in college. That the ray of light that we see with is 1/7 of the ray of light that is available on this Bhulok. What about the X-ray vision? What about the beta? What about the gamma? What about the infrared? And some others which I can't remember offhand. So we are not able to see more than, say, 1/7 of what visibility can offer. So how can we talk about Bhulok and visibility? We can talk about limited visibility.
Right. Yeah, that's true, sir. Here there is one more question which where people would like to know about the lokas they exist on, and where, and basically about reincarnation and rebirth, and how does that fit in with the lokas. And
so I have to add these 2-3 words before I give an answer, and that is, to the best of my knowledge. This is something I need to put on paper. Basically, when you go to a different lok, let's say you go to a lower lok, I saw, like I mentioned to you in this conversation, that I saw my grandmother. At that time, I could not even connect that it was the lower loka. Later on, I suddenly realized, yeah, this was a dark place. And was she looking sad? No, she was not looking sad. Was she looking happy? No, she was not even looking happy. So, what will be her future now? I am assuming that at a particular point of time, X, Y, or Z, she may get an opportunity for corrective birth. But because she might come from a lower lok, would she be born in a family which will be, as possibly, she was born in a very comfortable family. Her husband was quite a well-to-do guy, and he was, he was an executive in the insurance company, etc. But he did well. He had enough money. She lived quite well. She could do things for people. Blah blah. But would she be able to be born in that level again? Maybe not. Maybe she might be born at a lower level. Maybe she may be born at a level where she comes from a lower middle class family, and she might have to rework herself up. So when you come back to Earth, which takes a long time, and I want to qualify one more thing. There are a lot of people who are going to be reborn on this Earth who get stuck here. And they get stuck here on the Bhulok in their spirit bodies, and they wait, like that one particular case I love to talk about, where I am witness to that birth, and that is the case of a yogi in Bathri at camp of Gurudev, where that yogi waited for 100 years for Gurudev to come. And this I found out from the watchman, not from Gurudev. And that watchman used to interact with this yogi in the dream state. And the yogi used to come and tell him many things. So this yogi waited for 100 years for Gurudev to come and give him birth, which he gave in one of his disciples' home. So that is one aspect of rebirth, where spirits themselves are in waiting queues and on Bhulok, possibly because they are qualified to be here, and possibly because this is a potpourri of various gunas. But if you were to be placed in the Maharlok or something like that, then if you were to be born here, you will be born as a leader. You would not be born here because you have to suffer, or because you are already qualified. Am I making sense, Anjali?
yes, but if you could just expand a bit, because there are a lot of questions asking about, is there suffering only on Earth And that's why we, take births to, or is there suffering on the other lokas also? So if you can just explain a bit of that, and how when you take birth, you once did mention that when you take birth, there are times you've done a lot, you've been to a higher realm, but when you come down, you exhaust all your good karmas and currencies coming here, forgetting to give back and earn again to get a higher push, and end up going down in the game of snakes and ladder to a lower loka. So if that could be just explained a bit.
That was such a long question, I couldn't register it. So let me
Sorry.
just...
No, the question was very simple about people going to various different realms, sometimes higher realms, coming down on earth, exhausting their earnings, their karmic earnings, and then landing up in a lower realm or loka.
No, Anjali. If people are coming from higher realms because they have exhausted their whatever currency you want to call it, or karmic assets or whatever it is, then it depends from where they come. If they come from a lower level, they will probably come into a different standard of living, a different type of birth, and a different infrastructure and environment where they would have to work themselves out. Whereas on the other hand, and you're quite right when you say this, is there are people who will come from higher realms. They will be born in better circumstances, with better destinies and better infrastructure. I'm not getting the right word, but let's say they're born in comfortable homes, in nicer cities, and they live the life that most human beings aspire to live. If they get born into that, yes, they could go to lower loks, because this is that point which connects so many dots. And so if you don't come here and spend your time well, and if you don't earn enough, which again is a myth, but then we live in a myth. So in that myth, this is true. And if we don't earn enough, and if we don't do enough seva and enough self-development and self-realization, yes, we can slide to a lower place. Sure.
Right. So now here, seeing the charts, there have been a couple of questions about people wanting to understand how do they analyze themselves, because you find that you're a mixture of different qualities from different lokas. So at that consciousness, so where do you stand?
So I mean, this is a very generalized subject, but let's just look at one very simple thing. This is something that I've experienced, like this gentleman whose interview I played you, Pappu Pahadia. We call him Pappu Pahadia because he comes from a pahad. So Pappu Pahadia's father, Shambhuji, who was one of the earlier disciples of Gurudev, he saw these two people in this kind of because his third eye was open, so he saw them in this kind of a form where they looked like Rakshasa or Asura or whatever. Now, all of you, if you were to reflect on your dreams over the last, say, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, whatever, you would have seen people whom you knew who were not alive, or even people who are alive. You would have seen them in your dream state in a different form to the one that you saw them in the physical form. Am I hitting a point here or not?
So could you repeat the last statement again, please?
Okay. So let's say, let me give you an example. I had a friend during my childhood, and she was a very nice young lady, and we were college time, we were friends in college time together, and members of the same club, etc. She was a very lovely person. Then I don't know what happened to her. I didn't see her for decades, and then she came back, and then by that time she was a very very stylish person, and this that, and that old friendships were there. We were neighbors, etc. So I was quite impressed with her until I saw her in a dream state, and that was shocking, because what I would see of her in reality was she was a very fancy woman, But when I saw her in the dream state, I saw her roop as a very, I don't want to say it in words, but very negative kind of a roop. I don't know what's the English word, form, or whatever. How would you call it in English? What called roop?
Yeah, the form. Yeah, Hanji. The
Yeah,
form.
it's a very, very, very negative looking appearance. Okay, so like that, when I saw my grandmother, and I'm just giving you my example because that will connect to your example. My grandmother, or so many of the people I have seen, who I knew when they were alive in physical form, I have never seen them look the same as they did when they were in their when they appeared in the dream sequence or in a vision state sequence. They were always at a different age and looking different.
Right.
My mother was not a very good looking woman. I think. I mean, I don't know how to analyze it, but then I saw her many years after she died, and I was shocked. I said, "This looks like the same lady," you know. And she was young, and she was beautiful, and she was like a very good looking woman. So why was she a good looking woman, and why was she not a good looking woman? It's because she desired and probably had, and we did a lot of work in her name, by the way, a lot of philanthropic work in her name and credited it to her. So possibly at that particular point of time X, her self-reflection, and I'm not talking about looks, huh? I'm not just saying how the nose was and how the cheeks were and how the lips were. I'm saying that whole aura of that woman was completely different. And I'm addressing her as woman because she's not my mother anymore. Okay? She was only my mother till she was alive, and I'm only her son till I'm alive. After that, we become, number 436 and number 752 or whatever. So I find that people, and I'm sure all of you would have experienced that, and I'm not the only one, that when you see people like your ancestors, your parents, or who have passed away, or your grandparents, they will look as they would like themselves to present themselves in their prime form. Is that making sense?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. So taking that forward, is it possible for spirit bodies in different lokas to interact with one another? For example, a higher realm to the earth realm, and what are the qualifications on doing so?
See, I think so. Look, I haven't gone and read the SOP manuals of every loka, So I mean, uh, I have no justification to sound all knowing on that one. But what I believe is that, like, if I could go to a loka and meet, I didn't meet, but I saw this lady who used to be my grandmother in her previous incarnation, and I believe that was a lower loka, then I have a visa to a lower loka. But I've also been to two higher lokas or three, I don't remember exactly, but two of them I remember clearly. One of them was a loka where I saw one saint who I recognized, who was alive at that time, and I saw his form, and it looked completely different from what he looked on this earth plane. And I saw other saintly people. So I'm assuming that could be one of these Mahar or Janlok or that kind of thing. So I live on Bhuloka. I have been able to visit the higher lokas and the lower lokas. So I think there is a flexibility, provided you have the capability to do that. Now, what gives you the capability? I think you have to qualify in a particular manner, or at least with some spiritual qualification. But can
Right.
people from a higher loka come to lower loka? Yes. You heard in Mrs. Taneja's experience with her husband. He said that I've come here from far away, and it takes me a lot of effort to come here. Even Gurudev said this to somebody कि बेटा ऐसे मुझे याद मत किया करो अंदर बहुत कुछ जरूरी हो क्योंकि मुझे ये अपनी ड्यूटीज वगैरह हैं और मुझे भी कई ड्यूटीज करनी पड़ती हैं और मुझे भी वो सब छोड़ के आपको मिलने आना पड़ता है. So there is a sort of a capability to traverse, intertraverse between one and the other. Maybe one lower, maybe one higher. I don't know. But they say that people from the higher loks can traverse up and down.
Right. So with this we're going back to a very base question where most people are confused about. are lokas, realms, and dimensions the same, or is there any difference?
No, we answered that. No? There's different words. Richa Bhushan asked that question.
Yeah.
I mean, so Angrezi is such a language where you can have so many synonyms and antonyms, right?
Right. Right. Ji. And there's one last question from Mrs. Kapoor saying that if everything is due to destiny, then won't destiny take us to the Loka that we are finally destined to?
Yeah, of course it will. I mean, there is no question about it. If you are destined to go to a higher Loka, see, look at how destiny works, Anjali.
Right.
And the whole process is how to outwit that destiny, right? And how to
Absolutely.
circumvent it or how to duck it. The whole process is how to duck it. It's not how, I mean, evolved is the person who just accepts it, okay, and just flows with it and whistles his way through life. But if you are meant to go to higher lok, then you will be born at a particular time where there will be a particular muhurta. Let me give you an example. There's something called the ninth house. The ninth house is the house of bhagya, or of fate. And if you have a fantastic combination, most of the people, like, I can't disclose Mr. Ravi Trehan's horoscope to all of you, but many of the people who are on this program, I have seen they have a very fortified ninth house, and they have a very powerful Jupiter. Okay, so that much I can tell you. Ravi ji definitely has a very powerful Jupiter. So does Rishabh Manasala. So does Devraj. So does Dhruv Bhalla, and so many of you. I'm just naming the people who I can see, whose names I can see, and there are so many more who have these powerful.
So we cannot hear you. I'm sorry, sir. Sorry, we could not hear you. Your voice disappeared, sir.
Can you hear me now?
It's a little. Now I can. Yes, now we can.
So basically, when you are born, there's a particular muhurat at which you are born. There is a horoscope made. There are these 12 houses, and the 12th house is the moksha sthan. So if you are going to a moksha sthan, doesn't mean moksha. It's just called moksha sthan, because the astrologers who defined it probably didn't know that moksha is not available. It should have been called mukti sthan, okay, or spiritual sthan. But if there is a very powerfully positive planet in that place, that means that there will be a trend of spirituality in your life. The ninth house is the bhagyasthan, and that's where fate is determined. So if you have a Jupiter in your ninth house, or opposite it, or looking at it, it means that there will be trends towards spirituality. Similarly, there are houses like the eighth house, the first house. Many combinations happen, a combination of various planets and stars, where you could be predictably said to be a spiritual being. Like it happened in the case of Buddha, when this little Prince Siddharth was born. He wasn't called Siddharth at that time. I've forgotten the name of that astrologer who came, and when he read his horoscope, he lay down and touched that child baby's feet and said something or the other. I can't remember what he said. So that means there was a destiny to that child being like Jesus when he was born. There was this some dream somebody had, or when Mahavir was born, there was this dream. When Buddha was born, all these things happened. So destiny is definitely a very powerful tool to be able to know that this spirituality is a trend or not. But having said that, what one can do is one can probably alter one's reflections and work towards reducing your negative tamas and rajas. There is a positive tamas and rajas. I'm talking about the negative tamas and rajas. The 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 habit of criticizing others, looking down at people, wanting to be mean to others, hurting people, insulting people, arrogance, all these things can, through self-control, be contained. And even if destiny, so then possibly it is destined that you will be able to outwit your destiny at particular times to do things which go against the the Mahurat of your birth, because there is a transitory Mahurat also. The planets are transiting all the time, and there are times when your birth chart gets outwitted by the transitory chart. Am I confusing everybody?
No, sir, you're quite there, and this actually leads us to which I would like to be the last question of the evening, and that is, if you've been fortunate to connect with a Siddh Guru in this life, then how does it work towards moving towards your Guru taking you to the Loka with him, to his Lok, the Guru Lok? And what is it that you do so that you do not the Guru Seva, or you follow, you do not disappoint your Guru. So what should you do? That's another question that was put up. So I'm just adding it to this question.
You should read a book called Guru Sutra. I mean, that will give you all the answers you want. But if I were to put it in one sentence, surrender your intellect.
Right.
Because the problem is, and I faced this problem, I've had many people who wanted to come and ask me to mentor them, etc., and they still do. The ones I do are not necessarily the most brilliant or necessarily the most intellectual or the most impressive ones, because I feel they're short fused, and I feel that their intellect will be their stumbling block. So I feel it is not worth the investment if a person cannot surrender their intellect to you, because you are investing in them your effort, your indulgence, your aspiration for their growth. And in order to make sure that your indulgence works and doesn't fall flat on its face, you definitely want to choose people who have the qualities that you think you can mold. And intellect, I have found, is normally a big hindrance. So unless a person can surrender their intellect to you, they're worth talking to, they're worth helping and guiding, but they're not worth entangling with. I want to answer one question.
Yes,
How
sir.
do you explain the exponential increase in population after WW2, World War II? Too many spirits got the pass. How about increase in life expectancy? I don't know where that second part of the question gets linked, Abhidumba, but there are millions and millions of souls that have not been able to get birth. Now you will ask, how was the first one created? They were visualized. A power called Brahma could probably visualize 500, 5,000, 50,000, 5 million souls. Okay. So every time he wants to replenish souls, he can re-visualize more. But why did people, when people died in World War II, doesn't mean the souls disappeared. It means the bodies disappeared. Of course, the population came down. And then those souls possibly went to different lokas, and different souls from different lokas came and got an opportunity to get reborn. And that's how the population increased. I think that is an answer that should satisfy.
Right. So there's this one question, which is the next book?
I want to answer another question where I'm highly amused by this one. Lalit Vig. I don't know where he comes up with this from. He must be standing on his head for at least 1 hour a day in that yogic asana. Otherwise, you can't ask a question like, can the rebirth be only in the future, or can it also be in the past?
In the past.
I think that's a movie that was made by who's that famous karate guy? I don't know, that French guy. I don't know. Time machine and stuff like that. How can you be reborn in the past? I don't think you can be reborn in the past. But if you have the capability of probably appearing in the past, then that is one of the qualities that I have not experienced. So I'm not able to explain the how of it. But I've heard that this has happened. And possibly Lalit has found some story that has led him to this. I'm not capable of answering how this can be done, but yes, I believe that technically it is possible. Because if you can travel twice as fast as the speed of light in the reverse, then in every 1 year of your travel, you can go 2 years behind. But that's the logic of it. it has to be based on the speed of light. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, sir. And Sumant Bajaj would like to know what is the best way we can thank and express our gratitude to Hingori for sharing this practical and helpful information. And there's
This
another.
concept of Hingori came to me from my childhood. One of my favorite comics was Phantom. And the Phantom was 400 years old. Have you heard of the Phantom, the ghost who walks?
Yes,
Pygmy Bandar, African jungle.
absolutely.
So I realized that if this Phantom doesn't die, that means it's a replaceable person, right? So
Yes.
I bought this mantle of Hingori because I felt we could create this illusionary character, and whose shoes could be filled in by so many people. Today we started with this one Hingori character, but we have many now who fit that bill. So the best way that Sumant Bajaj can sort of say, I mean, I don't know why he has to be grateful to a person called Hingori, because there is no such person. But the fact that if he becomes one, and if he becomes that Phantom, then that is the way to improve. That is the way to sort of be of some use to people, without glory, without showing off, without impressing.
Right. So there was another question about which is the next book that is going to be released.
I have to write it after my death, so I am not sure whether you can print a book when you're a spirit. But yes, I believe that most of the people I have worked with, or I've had the honor to work with, I think most of the people, like all of you, and so many more of you to come in time, I think most of you have the capability to now take these concepts and personal experiences. And so many of you have had so many personal experiences, which I am aware of and which you are aware of. And I'm sure you can keep on adding to this concept. And the whole concept of these books is not really because they need to be sold, but because they need to share spiritual concepts in simple languages and without sounding profound.
Yeah. And may I add to that, sir, that we've taken this forward and created a spiritual laboratory. So there's a lot of information there as well, with many, many, many videos created on our website, hingorisutras.com. So please do indulge and please do log on and check those videos out. And you can write to us at answers.hingorisutras@gmail.com.
The first person to create that laboratory wasn't you. It was Merlin the magician, I believe. Good night, everybody.
Right. Good night.
Wish you all well. Please take this lecture. Please take this lecture seriously. Please die rich.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much, dear audience. It was a pleasure having you on we're almost like 2 hours. See you next week. Good night. Sayonara. Khuda Hafiz.